Hey, good morning, everybody. Bob Singh joining. I'm a couple of minutes behind today. But here we are with another segment from Smart Studio Circle. We're looking at today designing a perfect, and I mean a perfect schedule. I wanted to balance the teachers because teachers represent our talent, our space, and sanity. I'm big on sanity, people, because when the brain is balanced, life happens. Like I got up this morning, and you know what? I wasn't feeling it. Usually I'm up at 3 in the morning every day. I mean, every day. But today I wasn't feeling it. So I called my team and I said, guys, I'm going to chill. And lo and behold, the energy level was totally different once I was able to. So I'm Bob Singh. I'm the founder of Smart Studio Circle and CircleRAM.ai. And I have my beautiful team that is building products. We are in raging waters with AI, making cool things. And then at the same time, we have this simultaneous experience running studios. Yeah, nothing like walking the talk, right? So, as you guys join the Smart Studio Circle community, one of the things you'll see happening is there are a ton of events that have been hosted already. We have a couple of events um, happening every week. And we have now finally announced this uh, community in US, and we're going to open it worldwide in beginning of February. So what we do is we record the conversations, keep them here. If you attend live, great. If you don't, you can always join the community and go watch the conversations. So today matters. This conversation, right, is important because scheduling feels simple until it becomes the biggest silent stressor in the business. How many owners underestimate scheduling because it doesn't look strategic, right? Oh, we'll create a schedule. I didn't realize it either. And the fun part of these conversations is living through these experiences and managing 3 studios, realizing the failures, working with the wonderful team that I have in building the software that finally made my life easier. So, the I think I want to talk about what good enough feels like. Things mostly work, but you're constantly adjusting. How many of you are running these? How many of you are running into this all the time with your work in scheduling? And you are mentally tracking. If Sally doesn't show up, then I'll get Harry to jump in. for coaching the class. You see, that mental stress takes you away from what you're supposed to do. Today, for me, is a very beautiful day because my mind is quiet, my energy is high, and the CPU, my brain is at like fucking 500%. I love it. I love it. But when the storage and issues pop up and I have to fix those all the time, that takes me away from thinking. You see, as a entrepreneur, if you think of an idea and you deploy that idea, that can drive you away from becoming an owner operator and drive you into being an entrepreneur. Do you follow what I'm saying, everyone? Do you follow what I'm saying? That's what we need to do. So, good enough turns into exhaustion very quickly. We don't want that, right? I want your schedule to give you energy. I want your schedule to give you energy. I want that schedule to give your team the energy. So I'm not selling anything here. This is just good information, okay? This is just good information. So, when you go through so much stress in your life and you go through adversity and you figure out weaknesses and then you emphasize success and you tackle pressure, you deal with solutions. But at some point you say, you know what? If the same problems are occurring in different studios, and before I break down, I caught up and I said, man, we need a system. So you redesign a process and make something that is sustainable. So when you run through your first studio, you can improvise, right? You use your memory, your flexibility, your goodwill, and it will carry you early on. But does that improvisation that you started your studio with, is that real leadership? It doesn't scale, people. Now, if you are an individual with maybe 50 students and running a thing online and you're showing dance lessons on Zoom in your garage, and you're like, I'm happy making 20, 30, $40,000 a year, fine. But dance creates identity. And for those of you in the room and listening to this recording that are saying, I don't want to grow any further, you're shortchanging the world. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm being very candid and I'm being very direct to you. You're shortchanging the world. Because you have probably realized, or maybe not realized, that the dance steps you taught one person gave them the confidence that they aspired to apply elsewhere in other parts of the life, and you don't even know. You don't even know. So let's buckle up and let's not grow rapidly, but let's grow. Let's never stop growing. And growing doesn't mean making money. It's empathy, to be decisive, understanding patterns. And there were, in my case, so many inefficiencies, so many patterns that were ignored, and heroics, right? You guys understand what I mean by being a heroic? Hey, boss, I saved the day. I am so good. Those employees are. But heroics are not the way to go. They're not. You're reacting. And if somebody saves the day, God bless them. That's wonderful. But what I think again driving to is creating systems. You need to create an architecture of your schedule that works for you. So I'm going to share the lessons that I've learned. Scheduling problems can compound faster than revenue. How? You can have a small issue that may repeat every week and becomes a bigger issue. For example, you haven't thought about a backup dance teacher for each class. You may not be tracking the skill level of each teacher. You may not be tracking the attentiveness of the teacher when they are teaching. You may not have asked when a teacher feels at their best when they are teaching a class. Maybe a teacher, teachers are not well paid people, and they're working long hours to make a living. They may be tired. And what's best for them may not be best for you. Have you reconciled those things? These are all hard lessons. I think, one takeaway from this slide is to go back and say, okay, what inefficiencies do I have in my schedule? Whether those are team, schedule, time, skill, whatever. So, attention does not scale. Systems do. If I am involved in everything, everything will be better. That's the biggest failure I can have in any business. Forget about dance studios. I can't be everywhere. What's the point of having a team then, right? Now you can have a team, but the team doesn't scale if you don't have systems. And if you don't have systems, then everybody in the team is confused, the morale goes down. So don't get involved in everything. Create systems and let the systems live for you. Now, structure will create rules. Visibility will help you see the reality. And the predictability will give fewer surprises. Without these, I would have totally burned out people. Because when something is not working, you don't create the rules. You work with your team and request them to create the rules. Because then it's not that I am imposing on my team on the rules. It's for the good of the customer. It's our empathy to the customer. When you create rules together, you collaborate, everybody buys in. You see, every person in this world wants to contribute. That's not being selfish, because everyone wants to ethically earn their living. And if your process does not invite them in, then you as an entrepreneur are shortchanging them. Them meaning your colleagues, your employees. And don't tell your team members, you work for me. Never. They are the energy source that light up your company, that light up your studio. Bless them every single day. Now, let's get to the structure. Scheduling is like an operating system. Schedule eliminates stress, gives energy, and signals priority. This is not something that an admin can work on. It is something that is a leadership design. And every schedule will have its living constraints. You will not get a perfect schedule at the outset. You want. No matter how creative you are, these constraints will not disappear. You have teachers, you have space, and you have owner's energy. So let's talk about the first constraint. And I want to explain what a constraint is. A limiting factor that may prevent me from doing something. See, teachers are professional with limits. We can't treat teachers as time blocks. That's one of the fastest way to lose them. Right? They have preferences, they have strengths and breaking points. We want to acknowledge those as much as possible so we can get their attention and energy into the studio. And we don't want a high churn rate either in our studios, right? So when we see the patterns that repeat, and if we have a schedule, we saw teachers overbooked, some types and skills underutilized, and burnout was visible. This was not to blame the teachers, it was scheduling that was causing this problem. And those of you who have worked as teachers, you know your load is usually invisible. Burnout is something that is a lagging indicator. When somebody says something, the damage is already done. If this is not proactively managed, we have trouble. The data has helped me see this earlier in the game. And then sometimes we have substitutions. This can change the energy of the person taking the class. So I've personally been a professor for the longest time, 30 plus years. But then jokingly, I say my age is 21. The point is, Substitutions can feel dramatic. It also says your schedule is fragile. But when we have the same teacher, it's stability. Now, most of the times, your customers will understand if somebody's sick. But even when I am sick on subjects I teach, I go out and try to teach. I mean, I'll make an adjustment teaching online so I don't get people sick and so on. But let's talk about the second constraint. Now, we've talked about team. We also need to look at your space. You see, how is space going to play into schedule? And I know you're silently thinking capacity. Rooms influence stress and revenue. This became very obvious when you have a space that's empty. It can even cap revenue because if you don't have space, it can be a growth blocker. And space behaves differently in different situations, depending on how you utilize. See, if I take one class, it performs differently in a different room and at different times. When I talk about performance, I'm talking about skill level students attain. I also talk about number of students that ended up signing up for the class. So, and then of course, local demographics have an impact as well. And this is part of scheduling. Every schedule has to go through a phase of experimentation. And once you know the patterns of what behaves well at what time, like what class does well at what time and in what room, excuse me, then you try and make it permanent. But also keep in mind, year over year, based on your scheduling pattern, as students show up and you get a new body of students, things are moving. You have to be very cognizant of constant observation. Class is never the problem. Focus on the schedule patterns, and your life will get better with scheduling. Now, let's talk about prime time. So, challenge your assumptions. Don't make assumptions and just roll it into your schedule. Okay? Please make sure you never do that. Validate your assumptions. Prime time is contextual, not universal. So, what are the things you look for? What time are the schools closing in my neighborhood? How many students' parents are working? When can they pick up their child? Do you offer after class maybe care for some of these students where they can sit and maybe do their homework? All these small tertiary things in the schedule are addressed by validating your assumptions. And then eventually you figure out prime time, and you have to have systems that help you figure out which classes are doing best at what time so you can schedule classes at that time. Not only that, you also need to understand how classes how prime time is shifting. In one of our studios, we saw 2 to 4 was prime time in fall, winter, and spring, and it shifted from 3 to 5. Why? Local schools changed their time, shifted by 1 hour. Well, not full 1 hour, but 50 minutes. So you have to see this in your, and when you can see your space clearly, that brings you calmness. You remove emotional decision making. When you are not emotional and you're systemic, then you're not thinking from your heart, but you are designing with your thoughts in your brain. That can give you expansion. That can give you expansion. Expansion in maybe taking more classes, maybe expand, like say a rental space comes around next door and you're making enough money, you just may want to expand. The third constraint, most schedules assume infinite owner availability. Guess what? As an owner, I don't want to be available in those situations. Challenge that assumption, and the owner bottleneck will become clear, right? I cannot be everywhere. I must be in systems. So people employed can take care of things. And then along with systems is also software systems that take care of things. Idea is that the studio should work without me. I can't be the backup planner, emergency context, or a substitute. More you make your studio scalable, the better. This is the question I ask myself. What breaks if I disappear for a week? And I did that multiple times and I took notes and came back and created the system. And if there's a way for you to do this quickly, this is the question you need to ask. And if you're not a risk taker, you're going to choke at this question. So, the purpose of the conversation here is so you can have tools at your disposal to act on something, right? So ask this question, jot down risks and see what happens, become an observer. So you won't be reactive as much because when you're reactive, it's very exhausting. It keeps you busy and you're ineffective. And then you have attendance that dips, teachers become unavailable, you have room conflicts, and that drains your energy faster. So then you should get into more predictive scheduling, which is survival. Because you rather than be reactive, you shift to empowerment. Um, Prediction is not about perfection, by the way. It's just about uh, early signals that leads to multi-studio survival, right? So, and then you find patterns that become impossible to ignore. You can see patterns across multiple studios if you're running or just within one. The idea is to have a problem as a learning experience and make sure that problem never shows up. But if it's showing up over and over again, it's going to cost you in enrollments and revenue. The point is, when you create your system, you notice the issues and design them out. Meaning, go into your schedule and make sure that those problems are not recurring. And then you have to look at signals. I use this word very carefully that classes whisper before they fail. If early indicators are ignored in single studios, it can really cause a significant amount of failure in your organization. And burnout can show up before emotion. Numbers don't replace empathy, they support it at the end of the day. So spreadsheets aren't enough. You have to look at studio as an entire system and get clarity that reduces stress. And that's where your software systems can help you, you know. Every time I get emotional in my marriage, you think it's going to help my marriage? Not really. Emotion is the juice, if used correctly, can support decisions. But it can also backfire very quickly. Because if I get too emotional, things can break down. So, and your studio is not your life partner, but it's like a living entity. If it's not cherished, appreciated with positive emotions, it will say things back to you. Because what it says back to you as a company, excuse me, sorry guys, I'll be right back. It'll come back to you with negative emotion. God, something is stuck in my throat. 1 second. Sorry about that, guys. I got a frog in my throat. But if a studio is a living being, because there are living beings working in it, it's not the four walls. It's your team, it's your students, it's the teachers, it's staff members, it's you. So emotion is for empathy. Emotion is for adding a circulatory system of positive energy, but not about guesswork. So our own system helps with you know tackling a lot of these questions. CircleRAM is a product that helps with juggling locations, protecting teachers, and the biggest thing, reclaiming owner's time so you can scale. So it doesn't reduce owner dependency, but it supports your existence with leadership that you need to show to your team. And it's not about control, it's about giving owners back their life. So you don't have to spend um, long nights tackling scheduling, doing constant fixes, going into a decision fatigue, right? When you have more time, I'm sure you'll agree that you can think better. Even if you own one studio today, design your schedules so you can have multiple studios, because as you intend in that direction, you'll start thinking better. Okay, you'll start designing better. And when you have more time at your disposal, you can either chill, or you can either chill, or you can find more time to grow on things that you want. Now, growth should not hurt. If growth requires burnout, then it's not real growth. It's like going to the gym, and if I want to have a healthy weight and a good muscle mass, I'm going to have to work out a little bit. But if I follow a system, things are a little bit better, right? So, one studio tests your passion, but when you start scaling up, it tests your system. And I look at scheduling as leadership design. You get this right, everything else falls in. So, with those thoughts, I wrap up our today's session. If you have any questions, stick around. I'd love to answer them for you. Otherwise, it was lovely having you, everyone. Thank you very much. And I'll see you in the next session on Thursday. Take care, everyone. Bye now.